Good afternoon, folks. Now I've got discussion for you. We are discussing aging independently. Okay, I'm going to do a little narrative for you on that this afternoon. Give me a few minutes to set up for the show and we'll get going on the presentation I made. Please enjoy. Okay, guys, here we go. On the morning the story begins. Margaret Dunn wakes to the soft hum of her refrigerator and the faint creak of her old farmhouse. Setting into the day. She has lived in this house for 43 years. She knows every sound it makes, every sigh, every whisper, every warning. It is the closest thing she has to a companion now, and she treats it with the same respect she once gave her patients when she worked as a nurse. She sits up slowly, letting her joints negotiate with gravity. She has learned not to rush independence. She has discovered it is a choreography, one she performs with care. She reaches for her slippers, the ones her granddaughter bought her last Christmas. They are soft, steadying. She stands, she breathes, she begins. The rituals that keep her steady. Margaret's kitchen window faces east, and she likes to catch the first light. She brews her coffee, half calf now, because her doctor insists, and slices a banana. Into her oatmeal. She used to skip breakfast, but she doesn't anymore. She knows what happens when she doesn't eat. She knows how quickly strength can slip away. She stretches while the kettle warms. Nothing dramatic, just the slow, deliberate movements that keep her hips from locking and her balance from uh, wavering. She does them every morning, even when she doesn't feel like it, especially when she doesn't feel like it. Her independence is not a gift, it is a discipline, the house that holds her story. Margaret walks through her home the way a captain walks through her ship, attentive, observant, protective. She noticed the she notices the rug in the hallway curling at the corner. She bends, smooths it, and makes a mental note to tape down later. She checks the batteries in the smoke detector. She tests the night light in the bathroom. She does these things not because she is afraid, but because she is wise. Her daughter, Claire, wants her to move into senior community just to be safe, Claire says, just to have people around. But Margaret has people around the neighborhood who shovels her walkway, the mail carrier who knocks twice to say hello, the librarian who sets aside new mysteries she thinks Margaret will like. Independence. Margaret believes it is not the absence of others. It is the presence of choice. The afternoon she surprised herself. After lunch, Margaret decides to walk to the post office. It is not that far, but it is far enough to feel like an accomplishment. She puts on her sturdy shoes, grabs her cane, not because she needs it, but because she respects the possibility that she might, and steps outside. The air is warm, the sky is wide. She feels steady. Halfway down the block, she sees a boy on a bicycle, wobbling dangerously. She calls out, steady your elbows. He does. He grins. She grins back. She remembers teaching her own children to ride, running beside them with her hands outstretched, ready to catch, but hoping not to. She reaches the post office. She buys stamps. She chats with the clerk. She feels for a moment like she is part of the world in the way that matters. The evening she lets herself rest. Margaret returns home, tired but proud. She heats soup, slices of bread, and sits in her favorite chair, the one with the worn armrests and the perfect view from the maple tree outside. She watches the light fade. She listens to the house settle again. She thinks about the day, about the walk, about the boy on the bike, about the small victories that make independence feel less like a burden and more like a triumph. She knows she will not always live alone. She knows life will change, but she also knows this today she lived the way she wanted. Today she was still herself. She turns off the lamp. She whispers good night to the house. She sleeps. Why her story matters. Margaret's independence is not heroic. It is human. It is the quiet bravery of someone who chooses every day to remain the author of her own life. Her story is not unique. It is happening in thousands of houses across Pennsylvania, across the country, where older adults are navigating the delicate balance between autonomy and safety, solitude, and connection, vulnerability, and strength. Independent living is not about living alone, it's about living with intention. Here is Claire's story, told from her perspective, shaped by love, worry, and the complicated pride that comes from watching a parent insist on living life on her own terms. Claire's story, the space between worry and respect. Claire's always knew Claire always knew her mother was stubborn, not the loud kind of stubborn, the quiet, resolute kind that settles into a person's bones. Margaret Dunn had spent her life caring for others, first as a nurse, then as the unofficial matriarch of their neighborhood. She was steady, capable, and fiercely independent. But watching her age change the way Claire understood that independence, it wasn't just a trait, it was a lifeline. the drive to Meadville. Every Wednesday, Claire made the drive from Erie to Meadville. It wasn't far, but the emotional distance felt longer. She never knew what she would find when she opened her mother's front door. Some days Margaret was vibrant, coffee brewing, curtains open, a book waiting on the table. Other days she looked smaller, as if the house had grown around her. Claire never said this out loud. Her mother hated being fussed over, but Claire noticed everything. The kitchen test. The kitchen was always her first stop. It told her more than any conversation could. A clean counter meant a clean counter meant Margaret had cooked. A sink full of dishes meant she'd had the energy to eat. A half finished cup of tea meant she'd been distracted. A forgotten pot on the stove meant she'd been tired. Claire learned to read these signs the way her mother once read vital signs in the hospital. She didn't comment, she didn't lecture, she just quietly adjusted things, moved the rug, tightened the cabinet handle, replaced the batteries in the smoke detector. Margaret pretended not to notice. Claire pretended not to mind. The conversation they never quite they never quite have. Mom, have you thought more about the senior community? Claire asked. One afternoon, trying to sound casual, Margaret did not look up from her crossword. I like my house. I know, I just want you to be safe. I am safe. Claire wanted to say, you fell last month. She wanted to say, you forgot your medication twice. She wanted to say, I'm scared. But Margaret's jaw was set, and Claire knew that look. It was the same look she wore when she insisted on returning to work after her husband died. The same look she wore when she refused to sell the house. The same look she wore when she told Claire she could handle things on her own. So Claire swallowed her fear. The walk to the post office. One Wednesday, Margaret surprised her. I walked to the post office today, she said, almost shyly. Claire blinked. You did. It felt good. Claire felt something loosen in her chest. Pride maybe, relief, or the bittersweet realization that her mother was still fighting for her life. Not the length of it, but the shape of it. She imagined Margaret on that walk, cane in hand, shoulders back, greeting neighbors, calming her place in the world. It made Claire ache with love. The night Claire stayed late. The evening Claire stayed longer than usual. They sat together in the living room, the maple tree outside casting soft shadows across the floor. Mom, Claire said, quietly, no, quietly, I know you want to stay here, and I want that for you. I just need you to tell me when you need help. Margaret looked at her daughter, really looked. I will, she said. I promise. Claire wasn't sure she believed her or believed it, but she believed in her mother's attention. And sometimes that was enough. The truth Claire learns. Driving home that night, Claire realizes something important. Her mother's independence wasn't a rejection of help, it was a declaration of identity. Margaret wasn't clinging to the past, she was protecting the parts of herself that made life worth living. Claire understood that her role wasn't to take independence away, it was to make independence possible. To tape down the rug, to refill the pill organizer, to listen without correcting, to worry about or to worry without controlling, to love without smothering. It was the new choreography between them, delicate, evolving, imperfect, real, the ending that isn't the ending. Margaret 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 will age. Claire will worry. Their roles will shift, bend, and sometimes collide. But for now, Margaret wakes in her own bed, brews her own coffee, walks her own neighborhood, and ends her days in the house that holds her story. And Claire, driving home in the dark, knows that independence, like love, is something you protect even when it scares you. Okay, folks, that is A for you. I will be back on after a small break. So I will see everybody in a few minutes for B. For now, Gator Wellness. Take care, folks.